We have already seen how rites of passage usher people from one stage of life to the next, preparing them psychologically for their new roles and preparing the people around them for changes in their relationships. We will now focus on rites of passage that usher people from life into death. Death is frightening and destabilizing for the dying person and for loved ones. Dying people need to come to terms with the end of their lives and often grapple at understanding the meanings of life, death, and what might or might not follow. Death also affects those who survive. Death turns spouses into widows and widowers and turns children into orphans. Surviving family members need to learn how to cope with the loss of the loved one and need to reconfigure family relationships. Rituals often ease this transition, helping the dying person and loved ones to cope psychologically and adjust relationships. However, cultures vary widely in how they conceptualize death and what lies beyond, and therefore rituals surrounding death, what we call mortuary rituals, take very different forms. To start the topic of ritual and death, please read Barbara Meyerhoff's chapter, A Death in Due Time, Construction of Self and Culture in Ritual Drama. Meyerhoff conducted ethnographic fieldwork at a Jewish retirement center in California, and these photos are of her and some of the research participants. The book she wrote, Number Our Days, became a national bestseller, and the film based on it won the Oscar for Best Documentary Short. The chapter you will read is actually from a different book, but it is out of the same research. The chapter is about a man, Jacob Kovitz, who dies at his birthday party at the retirement center. Apparently knowing that his life was coming to an end, he laid elaborate plans for his birthday. We might say that he created his own mortuary ritual. Then, after he died, his loved ones commemorated his passing with a series of ritual activities, including the funeral and the shloshim. As you are reading, try to discern the apparent beliefs about death that are reflected in the different ritual activities, including the birthday party that Jacob Kovitz organized for himself, the funeral, and the shloshim. What can you discern about their views on death from both what was said and also from various symbolic actions? Later, we will head to the region of Ladakh in northern India, which has been settled by Buddhist refugees from Tibet. You will watch the video, The Tibetan Book of the Dead, A Way of Life. Buddhism is the primary religion in Tibet and in Ladakh and other Tibetan refugee communities in northern India. Buddhism is the primary religion in Tibet and in Ladakh and other Tibetan refugee communities in northern India. In Tibetan Buddhism, an ancient text, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo Todol, is read to a person who is dying and then also following the death. This image is a tanka, a Buddhist religious painting which represents several spiritual beings mentioned in the Bardo Todol. The film shows the mortuary rituals following the death of an elderly man, and it also shows how practices of the Tibetan Book of the Dead have been incorporated into hospice care in California. You should only watch part 1 of this film, subtitled A Way of Life, which runs for the first 49 minutes. You don't have to watch part 2, subtitled The Great Liberation. Again, while you are watching, try to discern the apparent beliefs about death that are reflected in the different ritual activities. What can you discern from both what is said and various symbolic actions? As I mentioned earlier, mortuary rituals vary significantly from culture to culture. One interesting difference that can be seen is whether the rituals aim to hold fast to the deceased, to memorialize, commemorate, and cherish the deceased, to keep strong the ties between the deceased and the living, or whether the rituals aim to release ties between the deceased and this life. In the first instance, you might see emphasis, verbal, behavioral, and symbolic, on the uniqueness of the individual and language that emphasizes holding fast, remembrance, and recollection. In the other, you might see emphasis, verbal, behavioral, and symbolic, on letting go and relinquishing attachments. As you are reading about the rituals surrounding the death of Jacob Kovitz and then watching the film The Tibetan Book of the Dead, try to discern the patterns in the different rituals. Are the rituals in each case designed in a way to preserve ties between the dead and the living and to hold fast to the deceased? Or are they designed in a way to release the dead and loosen ties? Preserving the body for millennia, as did the ancient Egyptians, or setting the body in a boat, sending it afloat, and then setting the boat aflame, as in a Viking funeral, are examples of these two different ritual approaches. But there are many other ways to verbally and symbolically represent different approaches to death, dying, and the deceased. Your conclusion might be the same for both cases, or it might be different.